Now, if you have done your mood boarding and you are ready to bring on a designer or you're planning on designing yourself, I'm going to share with you my design process that I do with my clients so that you can maybe have a good base and understanding of what you can do with your designer. So hi, this is Annie. I have 18 years of experience as a designer, sourcing, development, and production manager director in the fashion industry, and I am here to help you turn your concept into your fashion brand reality. When somebody comes to me and tells me they want to hire me as a designer, help them with development, help them with production, always the first thing I want to get clear is their design aesthetic, what styles they want to do, and what direction they want to go in. And so we always start off with a kickoff call. And the primary focus of this kickoff call is really to get down some realistic timelines of what they can expect for their brand and for their development, which typically if you're going for a contract manufacturing, it's going to be 6 to 9 months. Sometimes goes a little bit longer than that because it really depends on how many samples you want to see and how much of a stickler you are if you're trying to be very unique in terms of things like your fit or certain fabrics. So, but the baseline is going to be 6 to 9 months. So a lot of times the kickoff call is a reality check for my clients because most people don't have a good understanding of what those timelines are or what their budget could be. And it's really the responsibility of the designer who has experience to be able to tell them what the reality could be for what they want. Also, something that comes up is, in which I get asked all the time, how many styles do I need to have to be considered a brand? When I first started out, it was very collection based in industry, right? So collections typically had, could have up to 36 pieces in a collection, and really those 36 individual pieces, but then you're really creating outfits, right? And looks. So each piece needs to be able to coordinate with a top and a bottom, a jacket and a dress, and interchange with each other to create multiple looks. So then that's why you see when you look at fashion shows, it looks like their collections are huge. They're actually just typically 36 pieces in the collection, but the collection is so cohesive that you're able to create a huge amount of looks by just switching out items for other pieces, right? So you'll change out a pant for a skirt, have the same top and skirt, but put a jacket on there, and so on and so forth. But as the industry has gone more DTC, meaning direct to consumer, meaning you create a website and sell it directly to consumers, and then also social media, consumers now are really looking for more newness on a regular basis. So they're not really waiting for the regular seasonal collections anymore, right? No one's waiting for springtime for their spring wardrobe and then fall, early August for their fall wardrobe, fall and winter wardrobe, right? People want to see a consistent drip of new designs coming from a brand. And if you're not prepared for that, that makes it very difficult because the timelines for you for production do not change because you want to have multiple drops in a year. And so I tell people that you can have smaller collections. I mean, honestly, you can drop a brand with 2 styles if you wanted to, a top and a bottom. Do that, do multiple colors, you're good to go. You can totally drop a brand like that. And then you can start to plan out. If you design a lot of pieces up ahead, just because you design pieces, you have approved samples does not mean that you have to immediately go into production, which is the nice thing, right? So let's say you designed 10 pieces, but you have planned it so 2 pieces from that development is going to be dropped every 2 months. So that gives you a full year's worth of designs, and maybe you just change up colors and then you can extend it even longer because sometimes drops can be just a color drop. Right? After a couple of months, you find out what your best sellers are, and this is really great, especially for brands like loungewear, streetwear, athleisure brands, and then you take your best sellers and you just drop them in a brand new color that's very trendy for the season. It's a great way to have an additional drop. So there's really no rules when it comes to right now when it comes to how many styles you need in a collection to be considered a brand because everything's going DTC, direct to consumer. You just have to be able to figure out, do you want to have a bigger collection and have some extra time in between your drops, or have smaller collections and have more frequent drops, right? I have a friend that has her own brand. Hers is a streetwear brand, so more graphic based apparel, but she was dropping a style once a week. That is crazy aggressive, but totally doable in her niche because she had already been in business for a long time, had her styles, her garments down, and then was just dropping new art graphics on her styles, and that was a drop. So, you know, there's very creative ways that you can do these things. After you can talk to your designer about like what a good cadence would be for your drops, and from there I would say you would want to plan out, if you're doing multiple drops, plan out at least 2 to 3 drops, right? Because to have those styles already developed and just waiting for production is much better than you dropping one piece and then starting everything over once you've put that piece out for sale, and then your customers have to wait another 3 to 4, 5, 6 months in order to get your next designs. So that's a little extra advice from me. So during the call, having those reality checks, getting down how many styles you want, and then also sharing your mood boards with your designer. And this is going to be very important because if you're doing your mood boards on Pinterest, I always request, hey, just add me to your Pinterest board as a collaborator. That way, you know, if I find anything else, I can drop it into the mood board and everything. You can take a look at it, and it could be more of a collaborative effort. I really love for designing a collection or working with a client always to be a collaborative effort, because honestly, this is your brand, it's not my brand. I give you recommendations and I help you get to where you want to be, but ultimately the final decision comes from you, the brand owner, right? So after the kickoff call, I should have a very good understanding of what styles I am designing for, where the mood boards are, because I want to be able to know what the vibe is, what the aesthetic is for each of the styles I'm going to be doing, or at least the aesthetic for the entire collection, right? So the next step for me is to do my research and start design concepting and creating what is a line plan, right? And I want to be stressed very much. It's like, I think a lot of people have a misconception about working with a designer. Just because you work with a designer with a lot of experience does not mean that as soon as we sit down on a chair, boom, the ideas come. We're still very human. It still takes time to create those design concepts, and sometimes things just don't happen right away, right? I literally cannot have a phone call with a client, sit down in front of a computer, and then start sketching. It doesn't work that way. I need time to marinate, to be able to look at the mood boards, to be able to come up with my own ideas and concepts. The most time for your designer is going to be in the design conception stage, right? Because they need to take what you've given them, interpret it, you know, and shoot out the ideas. And that does not come easy no matter how much experience you have, right? Because for me, I want to give my clients what they've asked for, but at the same time, I want to give them my expertise, because that's what they're paying my hourly rate for, right? Because if they knew exactly what they wanted, they want the V-neck and I want short sleeves and I want it to be this fit and all that stuff, then they can just get a technical designer that has, you know, less experience, it's more affordable, and to just design exactly what they want. But I think when people come to me and other designers that have much more experience, you're really looking for somebody to interpret your ideas and really bring in their expertise, right? So sometimes that takes a little bit more time. But at the same time, if you do your research for your mood boards and give me a really good focused vibe aesthetic for your brand, those hours get reduced. So the more I need to research, the more hours I'm going to be charging you. What a line plan is that it's the overall plan for the collection. And I typically like to give my clients 1 to 2 options per SKU or per style that they're requesting. So for example, if you come to me and we go through everything, your mood boards and, you know, the kickoff call, and you're hiring me and you say, hey Annie, I want to have a bottom, a top, you know, a dress and some kind of outerwear, right? 4 pieces that you eventually want to have in your collection. Okay, so a line plan for me, I would suggest that I would design 2 to 3 options per style. So if you went for 3 options, that would actually mean that I'm designing 12 pieces for you. And why do I do this? It's because I don't care what designer you are, it's really hard for us to get it right the first time. Like, just right off the bat, like, one shot, like, it can happen. It's happened to me before where clients were like, nope, I have a very big plan and a very focused aesthetic. You know, I just want you to try, you know, one style for the line plan for each one. And if we need to make any changes, then we can. And that's totally fine, because this is the client's money and we go with how they want to do it. But I always suggest at least 2 options, because then it's like the first option is what you have asked me to do based on your mood boards. And then the second is kind of like an interpretation of what I would do with your mood board, because I have experience and maybe I've thought of things that are different than what you have available to you. Does that make sense? You know, like one is like exactly what you wanted, you know, and two is like what you wanted but with my expertise just mixed up in there, right? So I always suggest 2 to 3 options per style. And the nice thing about that is that it makes it a very collaborative process, right, for me and the client. Because once they get the line plan, we're reviewing it, you may say, hey Annie, you know, you have 3 styles for a top or a sweater or whatever it is. And you review it and you're like, hey Annie, I really like the sleeves from option 1, but I like the neckline from option 2. And I like the length and the fit from option 3. Can we mesh those together and that's gonna be the style? Yes, of course we can. And that becomes a very collaborative way of creating a design together. And then the client gets to be much more involved. I love having the collaborative effort. And so that's one of the reasons why I like doing it that way. But obviously, if the client just wants to have just one style per SKU, I'm totally fine with doing that as well. You know, so it's totally up to them. This is their brand. I'm just making suggestions. So after we do the line plan, and we've gotten the reviews and have approved the styles we're going to move forward with, then I go into creating a tech pack. And what is involved in a tech pack? Well, it's typically, at the bare minimum, it's going to be 4 to 5 pages, right? So it includes, like, your first page is actually the overall design page, which includes your colorways, meaning, like, you know, is it going to be black, white, beige, brown, whatever colors you want. And then the next pages will be the call out pages. And these are really call outs for construction on how I expect the factory to construct each part of the garment. The type of stitching it's going to be, if there's a specific measurement for placement, the type of neckline it's going to be, is it a ribbed neckline? Are we having to be a separate, like, you know, if there is a logo on there, is the logo embroidered? Is it heat transferred? You know, as many construction details as I can give them. And then the next couple of pages are kind of like detail pages, right? So like if you have specific details, saying like a button placket or a specific way you want something to be applied to the garment, or even, you know, if you're adding stripes to it or some kind of print to it, those types of details are added into the tech pack as well. They're all spec'd out. They're all explained as detailed as possible. And then you have your POM, which means points of measure. And those are the points in which you are going to control and dictate the fit of your garment. And that correlates to a spec. A spec is an Excel sheet. I usually put an Excel sheet just because that's the easiest way to update them during fit comments. It's the list of measurements that dictate the fit for your garment. So it could be, you know, across your shoulders, across your chest, your neck width, how the drop of the front, where it stops at, the length of your top and the side seam. These are all things that are on the spec, and they control how your garment looks and how your garment will fit for your ideal customer. And then after that, it's going to be your BOM, which is your bill of materials. And this lists out all the colors as well as all the materials you need in order to create your garment. And so this comes out usually in a chart form. And then after that, if you you'll have pages for your trims. So, you know, your main label, any logo trims, if you have label clamps, if you have heat transfers, these are the things that are going to be added into your trims page. So either your trim manufacturer or your factory that you're working with. If you're working with in small quantities, it's always easier to have the factory do it. They'll know how to construct those trims for you. And then the tech pack can get bigger and bigger and bigger from there, depending on how complicated the style is. There have been times where I have made tech packs that are like 12 pages long, and I'm not even joking, because it would be like some kind of technical, you know, outerwear jacket for Burton. It's literally an example. I made working for Burton for a little bit, and it was a technical outerwear piece, and literally how detailed it needed to be. That tech pack was like at least 12 pages long. So they can be very involved, but you have to be on top of it when it comes to your tech packs. Why? Is because these are the blueprints for the factory, for them to be able to create your design. And if your tech pack is incorrect, then your factory is then going to be incorrect. And then also your tech pack needs to stay updated based on whenever you have samples come in and you have any changes, that tech pack needs to be updated and sent to your factory, because it's also going to be your insurance policy. If the factory messes up your production and you go back to them and you say, hey, this was messed up, we have to fix it somehow, but that update wasn't updated on your tech packs and they're going by your tech packs for your production, they may say to you, it's not our problem, because the final documents that you sent to us that you said had everything updated, we followed that, and the issue that you're coming up with, maybe it's like you shortened the length or something like that, or you changed some kind of detail, like the cuff is going to be a ribbed cuff now instead of a self cuff. If that's not updated on your tech pack, then the factory can kind of go back to you and be like, well, you didn't update the tech pack, therefore we followed your tech pack that you said was approved, and so it's not really our problem. So make sure those tech packs are very up to date. And then also your specs, because your specs are going to dictate the measurements to control your fit. These need to be updated with each sample that you receive. Everything will be spec'd out. You have it on your fit model. You make changes, you make updates, you give them the comments, and that's an Excel sheet. And then eventually, for me anyway, I wait until the style is approved. And then once it's approved, that's when I create the graded specs. And the graded specs are basically a chart based on your base fit, which is what you used for your development. Let's say you use a size medium for your entire development. Once that size medium is approved, then you have the final measurements for that medium. You could make your size small, large, extra large, double XL, whatever sizes you have based on that size medium. And those need to be added into your specs before production, because then the factory can figure out, okay, we need this many yards of fabric in order to make however many units you plan to order, right? Because now they have the graded measurements for your style. So once we have that, once we have your tech packs, you've approved them, I finished them, I send them to you. Hey, is there any changes? Did I miss anything? Because, designers are not infallible and we can make mistakes. Sometimes people don't understand that, but I'm sorry, even a designer with 18 years of experience can sometimes miss things sometimes. That's why I send it to you before I send it to a factory, and then you look it over and be like, hey, this looks great, or, we talked about this change and it's not reflected. Okay, great. I'll update it, send it to you again. Once the tech pack is approved, then we send it to the factory. And a lot of times my whole goal is to get like the actual garment finished, because it does take a little bit of time to source fabrics and start making the patterns for the style, right? So a lot of times I leave things like graphics and prints and artwork until after I create the tech pack. Mainly because if I wait to have all the graphics and artwork and everything finished, it prolongs the time to send the tech pack to the factory to get them started. And in that time, when they have the tech packs, it'll take them at least 3 to 4 weeks to be able to even send you a sample. And really, your first sample is really just for the initial fit and overall design, right? You're almost never going to be able to approve a style for production with just one sample. If you do, that's amazing, and you should really thank your lucky stars for that, because that almost never happens. So that's why I usually wait if we're adding graphics or prints or artwork to the designs. I wait for that until after I'm done with my tech pack, because sometimes prints and graphics and artwork can take a while, because you really need to flesh out ideas depending on how you're going to be able to print it or apply it to the garment. That takes a different technique in terms of final files for the factory. So just leave that so you can work on that afterwards, so while the factory's working on your tech pack. But overall, that is the general design process to be able to get from concept to out to the factory to get started with development. So I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope you got a little bit of insight on that and get a little bit more of an understanding of like what's going on and how you can collaborate with a designer. So if you like my content and you want to see some more of it, then like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. If you want to see some more of my content, here's a video over here. and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.